need to throw those in, because they're quite expensive. So the front brakes, I have 20,000 miles, a little bit over 20,000 miles. And I think they are almost done. I heard a little stupid. I should have you check last time when I was here, but I should have. And the rear, they should be good, but I want you to check.
Alright guys, so we're going to do some brakes on this. This is another one of my tow guys' rigs, Ross. So he uses this in his tow business. We're going to do some more brakes on it for him, but we're also going to change the oil on this too. So when he first pulled up, he explained to me that it doesn't need rotors. So I'm not sure how he was able to tell that without taking the wheel off, but hopefully he doesn't need rotors. He's probably trying to get this done as cheap as possible. So if it needs rotors and he refuses it, what can I do? All right, let's get this wheel off. You can definitely tell he needs brakes on this because there's a lot of brake dust going airborne just by impacting the lug nuts. Alright, so we know the front pads are low. Let's see if the back ones are. Looking through a window on the caliper, looks like pads are a little low. There's still a little bit of meat left on them, but knowing Ross, it's best we just go ahead and replace them. Okay, before we bust loose the brake calipers, we'll go ahead and get the oil draining. So let's grab something to crack this drain plug. 3/8 drive square bit. Let's plug it up. Oil filter's tucked way up in there. So let me go see if I got something that can actually get way up there and get see if I can find something out of this adapter set. I think I'm gonna try to go with this one. It's a pretty big filter. It is a diesel. Get this thing on there, see if we can get it off with this. Got the filter in there. Had to change my shirt. Got a little oil that ran up my sleeve right here. Always keep an extra shirt around. Pad wise, so they're getting there, so we'll go ahead and swap them out. Same thing on this side, getting thin. right, let's put our safety glasses on. All right, next step on the bracket is to clean the inside out. We got it nice and clean where our hardware sits. We'll get it cleaned out in here. We'll clean it, hit it with a little brake clean. So try to keep some dust from flying up, but see a lot of guys doing brake jobs and just putting grease right on top of rust and putting grease right on top of brake dust. If you're gonna really like take the time to lubricate the brake system, you need to clean all that stuff off. If you're not gonna take the necessary steps to do the job right, then just don't do it at all. This is how I do all my brake jobs. Install it back on the vehicle. Let's clean up the rear caliper too. If your bracket is all rusty, because you live somewhere where there's like rust, you got to deal with rust. We really don't have to deal with rust in California, so none of my repairs do I factor rust in. Just like that. Also, if your bracket is filled with rust, obviously, if you take a wire brush over and you're just polishing rust, then you probably shouldn't be doing this job anyway. All right, let's go and get this installed in the vehicle. All right, back to our front rotor. So let's just spray it off, get all that brake dust off of it. Alright, so there's really no point in taking a blow gun and blowing this off. Sort of defeats the purpose of using brake clean. You use brake clean so that you don't make brake dust go airborne. And to dry it, I mean, this stuff dries almost instantly. All right, let's get that caliper down and get the pistons pushed back in. Then we'll hit that with some brake clean, and then we'll also clean up the contact surfaces on it. Heavy caliper. All right, let's get these pistons pushed in. All right, Looks like that's about as far as they go in. I usually don't crack the bleeder valve on these. I know some people do, but I've never had a problem not cracking the bleeder valve. I usually don't mess with it if there's no reason to. I know some people do. Matter of personal preference, I guess. All right, so we got the pistons pushed back in. Another thing too about opening the bleeder valve, a lot of times it makes the piston easier to push back in, which I assume that's the reason why people crack the bleeder valve. But also, it could disguise a problem. If the caliper is hard, the caliper piston's hard going back in with the bleeder valve closed. That means it's going to be hard coming out. So if it's hard going in, it's going to be hard going out. So if you leave the bleeder valve closed, you can see how much pressure it takes to push in. And if it's really hard, doesn't want to go in, that means maybe the piston is starting to seize on you. Again, if it doesn't want to go in, it's probably not going to want to come out either. So that's why I like to keep the bleeder valve closed. Give you an idea of how free the pistons move in or out. Anyway, let's clean up the surface and get ready to grease it out. So we'll start by spraying it down. Help with the dust a little bit. Now we got a nice clean contact surface to be able to lubricate. So you see we got a nice clean contact surface. Now we can put grease on this now. Let's get the pistons clean as well. All right, again, we'll spray it down. Get all the dust off, so we don't worry about dust. Okay, no more dust. Let me change my bit to a smaller one. All right, let's take a minute and look at these brake pads because I didn't buy them. Ross, my tow guy, bought them. And I just want to make sure I got the right stuff because customers always bring you the wrong stuff. Always. All right, we'll start with the front pads. Take a look at them. Compare it to the old pad. See what we got here. Looks to be the same pad. Looks to be identical. You can see this pad didn't have a whole lot of life left on it compared to a new pad with 100%. Here's already unwrapped them because I was trying to find some brake hardware. There's no brake hardware in this set at all, which you really need brake hardware on these. Up and reuse the brake hardware on them. They're like one-time use on these trucks. Anybody who has this knows that the caliper locks into the brake caliper hardware. It literally slides up and locks inside the shims or the hardware. So you gotta have new hardware. Anyway, so these pads look the same. You know, they'll do. So I had to call AutoZone. I got my guy Coop bringing me over some brake hardware. He's got. Let me grab some Loctite. Just Loctite it up a bit. You know what? I bought recently some of that Loctite gel. I like that stuff. Works a lot better. So I like that Loctite gel. Put some Loctite on this bottom one. Alright. Be nice to get our hardware on here, but we'll wait for AutoZone to come back. In the meantime, let's go get the rear bracket on. Alright, so we'll move to the back, get the back done while we wait for AutoZone to show up. We're going to do the same thing on this too. All right, guess I'll push the pistons in first, and we'll go ahead and get them all cleaned up. All right, I'm gonna see if I can squeeze both pistons in at the same time with a big pair of pliers. A lot of times I can. Just get it right in the center right here. Get it opened up a little bit more. All right, now let's get it all wire brushed off, cleaned up. Most of the dust off, so we shouldn't get a whole lot of dust flying off. Oh, we'll just wet it again before we hit it. being in your lungs with air. All right, now we can lubricate our caliper pistons. Feels good. Okay, we'll spray it down one more time. Get all the brake dust off, which we pretty much did already.
Let's go. Got your brake hardware. Yeah, it's cold and windy, man.
I know.
You have a good one, sir.
All right, brother, thank you. All right, so my brake hardware showed up. We can get this job wrapped up. All right, let's snug these up. Okay, got our bracket on this side. Now let's grab the hardware and our pads. And we'll get the backs on first since we already back. Let's get our hardware in. You don't want to put grease on this. I see some people put grease on this, but that kind of defeats the purpose. You just want to clip these in dry because you want the caliper or you want the brake pad to slide in here. You want this to stay stationary and just the pad slide. So you want to keep this dry and free from movement. Let's get the top one on. Throw some pads in there. Get a little grease on it. All right, let's get the back one in. Okay. All right, so we good there. All right, so on our brake caliper, the hardware kit came with new boots, so let's throw some new boots on there. Go ahead and use them. Why not? So clean it up with the wire wheel, get it nice and smooth before you coat it. In this case, this one's clean, so. All right, let's see, this part has thread, so. All right, got those pins in. All right, so let's clean up some of this grease. From our greasy hands. I don't really like these boots. I think the OE boots was better. So I'm just gonna leave the boots on the rest of the brakes. Check our slide action. So we got nice movement from our slide pins. All right, so this side is done. So let's move on up to the front. Get the front done. We got front pad with some grease on it, of course. So let's get it slid in. All right, let's get our back one in. All right, got our pads in. Now on these calipers, I'm gonna leave the OE boots on there. They're better than those aftermarket ones. The aftermarket ones kind of suck. So I'm just gonna lube these up and then just reuse the boots. Okay, so we got our slide pins lubed up. Let me wipe my hands so I don't get grease prints all over the caliper. It's on, let's get our bolts in. All right, so we got the brakes all serviced up for Ross. I'm not gonna film the other side. Some subscribers don't like long videos. I'm not gonna say any names. But I'm gonna go knock the other side out, same procedure, and then we'll get it on the ground and fill it up with oil. All right, guys, got all the brakes done, all 4 wheels on. Let's get this thing on the ground so we can fill it up with some oil. Alright, so you can tell got a little bit of spillage when we compress the caliper piston in. This happens a lot when people think that they need to have brake fluid because the fluid may appear low, but it's because the brake pads are really low, and the calipers have to come out quite a ways, and then the fluid fills up that gap in between, you know, the caliper sticking out in the back of the caliper piston sticking out in the back of the caliper. So what I'm gonna do is go and pump the pedal and see if our fluid goes down some after we. All right, so we got a nice hard pedal, and the fluid is definitely still up way too high. Well, yeah, I won't say way too high, but need to remove just a little bit. So let's take a little bit out. Can't find my turkey baster, so this will have to do. got quite a bit out of there. Now it's at the fill line. See here now we got the fluid right at the fill line, sucking some of that brake fluid out. All right, so we got that right. Now let's move on and fill this thing up with some oil. All right, let's see how far one jug got us. All right, let's see what 2 jugs did. Alright, so it's full. So let's start it up. See if we need to add to it. So I'm sure we will. And we do. Took all 3.